Oh, maybe actually this is not that bad because I am pretty far away right now from the camera. And at the end of the day, this is a podcast and not. Where's my bottle of water? There is. At the end of the day, this is a podcast and not a video, YouTube video. Even if you are watching this video on YouTube, congratulations. Hi. I love you. It's nice to see you. But I just wanted to do something a little more chill and homey and sitting on my bed recording this podcast on my new beautiful Shure microphone for podcasts specifically, especially. Anyway, this is my second try of recording this podcast. Let me get to it. Let me get to it. By the way, if you're watching this podcast on YouTube and not on the other podcastish things, you can see my big white blanket in the background because my hair is dark and the back of my bed is dark. So it's otherwise not working out. But hopefully, right now, it is going to be working out. Also, my face is a little puffy because yesterday I went to do this amazing procedure. It's called lipolytics, and supposedly these are really strong ones. I've done them before, but they kill the fat in your face structure and your face just becomes so snatched. But the first 2 weeks, you look like a freaking bear because you are very, very puffy. But anyway, my beautiful friends, welcome to this podcast. My name is Elizaveta S, and I've been wanting to record this podcast for a long time because I've been getting a lot of questions regarding one specific thing in my life. And as you know, I am a pretty public persona in terms of I'm very open in what is happening in my life. I do not like hiding things. I'm sometimes even shockingly open. As a narcissistic self, I love shocking people sometimes, but it just feels more natural for me to be direct in my thoughts, direct in my opinions, direct with my own life. And whatever is happening, I prefer sharing it as opposed to keeping it together and then everyday living being afraid that somebody is going to find out, because that's the way our mind works. We cannot put something on a shelf in our mind and just forget about it. It's like Windows, it's like a computer, like whatever thoughts you're having, they're constantly eating away your space and your processor. Like, if you open a lot of windows on your computer, it just stops working so fast. So same thing happens with our mind unless we bring these things to an absolute closure, like putting them on the list or talking them through or sharing them or resolving them. It has to come to some sort of resolution for these windows to close in our mind. Anyway, also, I am very stuffy, as you can hear. I'm a little stuffy because of my nose. My nose is really stuffy. And that's funny because this is the second time I'm recording this podcast. And the first time, I just could not breathe through it. I literally was so stuffy. I was just like, I couldn't even breathe. I was on this glance. I don't know if it was from bone broth or not, but I could not breathe. I am better now. La la la, my beautiful friends. So let's face the subject of the conversation. And the question is whether or not I am getting a divorce. And the answer is yes. The question is actually, where is my husband? Because recently I've been posting a lot with another man, and regardless of the fact that they do look alike, people know that this is a different person. And I stopped posting about my husband and I stopped saying my husband because I am going through a divorce right now. And this is what this podcast is going to be about today, to put all eyes or put all dots on top of eyes. I don't know if this expression makes sense. For some reason in Russia, we have this expression to put dot on top of I, even though in our language, our I doesn't even have a dot on top of it. So please, somebody explain that to me. Let's start here. Let's start with the fact that 2022 was a very important year for a lot of people. And if you guys know, we're shifting right now, our planet Earth is shifting to a new dimension, to a 4D dimension. And we've been living in the 3D dimension for a very long time, meaning that we have our objects, right? Tangible objects. 2Ds is something that you see on paper, it's printed, it has two dimension. And then we live in the 3D dimension. And then the age of Aquarius, if you heard about that in many, many sources, whatever culture, civilization, or religion you take or belief, they all speak of this big shift that Earth is going through right now. It's also proven by Schumann's resonance. If you're one of my VIP clients, you know very well what that means. If not, Google it. This is not a podcast about Schumann's resonance. But anyway, it's jumping really, really high. And every year, since even before the pandemic, or kind of like from the pandemic, if you take a look at the years that have been going on, the intensity of events, the intensity of changes shift, and it becomes faster, bigger, stronger, and it really, without any questions, it just destroys things that don't work anymore, things that would have taken lifetimes before to destroy. Just because they weren't working anymore doesn't mean they just because they were lasting doesn't mean they were working. Okay. And this is not about my marriage, just to tell you that right away, because I don't want comments below saying, oh my god, our marriage has never been working, because it has. But Schumann resonance shifts, and we're going into this big change in the world where everybody has to come to an individual self, and life just starts operating by different laws. It becomes more individualistic in terms of we have to find our way back to our core, to our soul, to our identity, to our true wants, needs, and passion, and our destiny, our purpose on this planet. None of this, kindergarten shit is gonna work no more. So 2022 was the year of lovers. So if you take tarot, and if you've ever learned or studied that, the tarot card lovers doesn't always mean relationship, doesn't stand for relationship. It stands for choices, and it stands for choices that are presented to you, where you have an opportunity to either choose yourself or continue betraying yourself, which means that it's just gonna the lessons that life is going to present for you if you don't make the right choice for you are just going to be harder and harder. So 2022 was the year of that. But surprisingly, now looking back, 2022 in so many people for me in my circles have been about relationship. And now let me backtrack a little bit. I remember when pandemic started, when COVID started, that was kind of like level one, the first level of fixing what's broken, fixing not even what's broken, but what is no longer serving an individual, what is no longer serving one. And a lot of marriages had to finally face each other, and because of the lockdown, because of the stress of the new world that we're stepping into without any guarantees, without any long-term planning, a lot of marriages and families got to split, and got to with big problems, had to really break it off. And that was the first time that stroke. But this year, the year 2022, what I have faced personally is a lot of people from a higher dimension, if you please, from a higher level of awareness, from a more thoughtful people who specifically work with either it's a mental field or energy field, who are very aware and attuned with all the things I'm describing as of now, have been facing big changes, specifically in the aspect of relationship. And believe me, in the beginning of this year, nothing really struck it. Like, it, for me personally, I remember beginning 2022 with one intention in mind, and that intention was relationship, like healing and really working on relationship with people in my life, and not marriage, right? Not necessarily romantic relationship, but just interactions with others, interactions with people, with family, with friends, keeping up those connections, those interhuman connections throughout the year. That was my intention in the beginning of 2022. And we even took this trip to go see my nephew, Isaiah, up in Vermont with my ex sister-in-law and her husband. So it was really, about that. For me, it was really about that. And then, which was interesting because now you can look back and see all those alignments, how, these patterns just play themselves out. It's like looking at the big pictures, you can start seeing the details. When you really zoomed in, it's very hard for you to be aware, to see exactly what's going on a bigger scale, right? How life is painting itself out, how your energies are painting and playing themselves out, and how you can be an observer of exactly what's happening and exactly what's going on. But long story short, we were planning on having a child, and that would take the family to the next step. So we were in this transitional phase of life in my previous marriage, where the system that was working before was no longer working, and the new system that was about to be built was not built yet, right? And that is what's happening in every family, in every relationship. Cycles, right? The family system always adjusts. So even for an individual, you go through these cycles from monad, I think it's called, when a person just leaves his family and starts living by himself, to really uncover and discover who they are. Then they form a couple or start dating relationship. Then it goes into dyad, which is a young family living together, then a triad when there's a baby, etc., etc. So there are different stages, family system stages, that a family has to go through. And in my specific case, we have completed one and we're not ready, or not have not gotten to the next one. So we're kind of in between two stages, right? And I got pregnant, and I have a separate podcast regarding that, so you can go and listen to that. I'm not going to go into details here, but to just bringing it to closure, it just didn't work out. It just stopped working. Didn't work out, because that would intend that there was this big intention behind it. And I don't know, didn't work out sounds like a failure to me personally. It just didn't work, no longer, right? And a lot of things happened to actually show that. And I, for myself, know that this past year has definitely been regarding and about change, or choice, not change, choice for me. That choice of who am I and what do I want. That choice of how much longer am I willing to give myself up, how much longer, or am I willing to betray myself in some of the choices for whatever society, parents, family systems, somebody else, etc., etc. So I just really thought of what I wanted and how I wanted it. And I realized I'm gonna be like sneezing and coughing a lot, because my whole body's going through a sabotage right now, even talking about it, right? Because it's a private topic. This is actually even more private than the other podcast that I recorded, as of for me. So at the end of the day, we made a choice to split and get a divorce, and move on. And I will be honest with you, that was pretty hard at first. It was really hard. Sometimes I still get those feels. Like, for example, yesterday was a very rainy day in LA, and I was still staying, or I'm still staying in the apartment, even though before I'm gonna move out of here. And I would just get sad. I'll be like, well, reminiscingly sad, um, and lonely about that, because my someone else, I don't know how to call him just yet, maybe soon I will, is overseas and is not here right now. So yeah, I'm not going to be sitting here lying, saying that divorce and split is always easy, even though deep inside, and with every cell of your body, this is the way to go. This is a way, to improve, not to improve, but a way to move forward, a way to grow from it. It still is very bittersweet, because I spent personally 5 years with this person, And it took me last month or a month and a half ago, I was going through so many emotions, because you still have to go through 7 stages of grief whenever any relationship ends, even if it's friendship relationship, even if it's relationship with your partner or with your parent or with anybody from your family, because at the end of the day you're burying like something that was no longer is, which is a little death. So you're going through this little death, and these stages of bargaining and acceptance and anger, they all are going to be present in one way or another. They're going to intershift each other until finally you get to this resolution. And I was just taking this time, and I want to take this time to focus on me and to focus on who I am as a single woman, or not as a single woman, who I am as a woman, who I am, who I want to be in the next 5 years, in the next years, the next 2 years. And I remember talking to my friends saying, it's the first point in my life, first time in many years, in 5 years, when I didn't even have plans for New Year's. I didn't even have plans for what's about to happen the upcoming year. I didn't know exactly, my vacation trips, like how it was when it was really set together. Like I had my plan, and which is very egotistical, because as I was saying, in this new age of Aquarius, this planning, this old school planning, is not going to work. And that's probably one of the hardest things for me to shift to, because I'm a freaking planner. I am a control freak. I love schedules. I love knowing what's going to happen. I love knowing how it's going to happen. I love to take the world and hold it in this tight grip and be like, this is how I want things to be going. But it's not going to work like that anymore, and it's just a matter of shifting to this new consciousness where you're open. You still have a navigation, you still know where you want to go, right? Like the trajectory of what you want to achieve or where you see yourself, but it's not going to be that hard planning, that hard ass planning anymore. So that's that. And yeah, well, about myself, obviously there were a lot of emotions that go around this topic still, to people who are hurt or who have been hurt because of this decision. Regardless, it's still gonna raise some emotions. And I remember going through so much grief and be like, well, I'm just really sad. But one day I had this amazing shaman, and it so happened that this past month, December, was really full of constellations for me. And constellation is a way to kind of put together the family system and see what the dynamics are happening between humans, all that stuff. And I was never a big fan of that. There's a pseudo psychologist, Gellinger, who created this method, and then it has been raised, and it has brought a lot of different variations to it. And I was never really drawn into constellations until December. Somehow I had two amazing, very powerful sessions. One of them was with my friend Liana. I might put her contacts below this video if you're interested in reaching out and seeing what it is. But she really helped me a lot with the whole divorce and losing a child and new relationship, and to put it all together and really let the energy go where it's no longer needed, or easing it down. And then this other guy, this shaman, who my friend recommended to me, and she was like, just go there. And she was like, I cannot tell you exactly what was going on in the session because you cannot share it for 2 weeks, but just go. So I booked a session with him online, and it was supposed to be mid-January, but he texted me and he was like, I have a spot tomorrow. And it was literally in a few days from my previous constellation. And guys, actually today's the day when I can start sharing it, but I'm not gonna do a video about it. Maybe one day I will, actually, about family systems and how they're bound together. But it was freaking powerful. It was so powerful, really putting together everything that has been going on, explained to me why. Like, he told me things that I did not share with anybody about my family, like with anybody. And not just things in terms of feelings, but hard on facts. I'm like, how do you know it? But that guy is intense. He's, I think, from South America somewhere, and sometimes he does sessions in Miami, group sessions, which I really want to go, so you might see me on one of those sessions. But god damn it, guys, he really he really hit me. It like really hit me hard. I already cried everything out by then, but just that the change of the field was wow. And the next day, I remember I had like 2 very hard days when I was just very down and, going through this grief period. And the following day, or like in a few days after the constellation, I woke up and I was just so grateful and so happy. And that is the feeling I want to get to right now. Like, I don't understand, or I will never, not never support, that's a wrong word, but I believe, and I will explain why. Oh, my fort just fell. 1 second. Okay, so the shaman guy. That's what I was saying. I remember what I was saying. Okay. But I woke up with so much gratitude for the relationship that I did have and for that specific person in my life. I was grateful to my core, and I just realized that just because we're getting a divorce does not mean that we should erase each other from each other's lives. It's very hard to find someone who will be so attuned to you, who will be in your soul circle. I remember having this thought, like, how often when you go to a restaurant or you go on a plane or wherever, you see somebody, a stranger, and you're like, oh my god, this is my person, this is somebody I can build relationship with. And really have gratitude to people who that you do find, who people who do play that important part in your life, because it's not that common. It's a rare and it's a beautiful feeling. Like, I was just so grateful when I realized that this is not a death. This is not a forever goodbye. It can be a thank you. It can be a I'm so grateful we shared this time together. I'm so grateful we had each other in our lives, in each other's lives, and we can continue having each other in each other's lives, but not in the same way as before. So yeah, and that was just so relieving. And I remember that was the day I met with one of my girlfriends, and she was sharing with me that she was also feeling very down, and she was married one time. And for many years, for 3 years, she was holding so much grudge against him, against her ex husband. She was holding so much negative energy that ironically was just bounding them together and was holding her back from actually going and experiencing love for what it is in the future relationship, or finding somebody else that she can have the same emotional connection with. And just as the year was closing in 2022, they met and they talked and they cried. And I saw her a few days after, and the energy she was having was so different. It was just grounded and womanly and pleasing and warm, and just I don't know. There's a Russian word. It's called obvolakivать. I don't know what's an English word for that. Kind of, huggy. And they didn't go get back together. They just finally released it and really let each other go from this position of thank you for being in my life, and thank you for everything that we did share. So I'm still yet to get to that place, which I'm moving actively towards, because I know that whenever that truly happens, ha- whenever all that hasn't been talked through, just like what I started this podcast with, whenever those windows, as long as those windows are still open, it takes away that energy that can be navigated and put towards building the new future. What else? What else am I supposed to say here? I'm grateful. I'm happy. I even talked to my dad the other day, and he gave me this beautiful thing, or I actually read it somewhere, and then we talked about it with my father. And the thing was like, observe rocket ships, observe them, observe the way they are built. For an individual, or like, okay, for a rocket ship to achieve or to reach cosmos and galaxies and the universe, it has to slowly, one by one, let go of the things that it cannot carry any longer. And I remember reading it, not even in context of relationship whatsoever, but just that idea of, if you want to reach your cosmos, if you want to reach your universe, if you want to reach your galaxy, you have to let go of things. And it doesn't mean heartbreak. It doesn't mean, anything negative necessarily. It just means getting lighter. It just means going towards your true self. So that is it. I love you. Thank you for staying with me. I truly, truly wish every single one of you to find yourself. And my boyfriend my boyfriend, whatever, my fiance to be, is making fun of me because I'm like, I chose myself, I found myself. But that's what it is. You have to find you in this universe and go towards your cosmos, go towards your galaxy, go towards what you're here to be, what you're here to want, to desire, to have, because it's beautiful and magical. And I'm very grateful for my experience. And I am still working through it. Just like always, I will never be here recording a podcast being like, I have figured out my life 100 out of 100, because that's death. Like, what's the point of continuing life if you have already figured everything out? No, you're always working. You're always working towards your betterment. You're always working towards your new heights. You're always going higher. Imagine if the rocket ship stopped midway, it would fall. It would go back, and the gravity of Earth would pull it back. You have to keep going. You have to keep going in your quest of finding yourself, finding your heart, finding your soul, and helping the energies around you that surround you, uh, letting them help you. Okay? Don't forget to subscribe to me everywhere. I, by the way, guys, now have TikTok, so go ahead and check that out. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, podcast. I love you. My newsletter. I will see you in the next video, probably this week. Week. I will see you in the next video this week on YouTube. And it was my pleasure. I love you. Ciao. Mon amour. Mi amore. Love you.